Good morning, everyone. I'm so excited. I told Alex Sanfilippo before we even started that he is the reason I say every morning that I have guests on Facebook Live, because through Alex and this wonderful, when I started doing my podcasts, I really looked into how do you even get guests? And I get asked that question all the time. Alex, you must get you must hear
Yes.
raves. I can't be the only one, but Alex is the host of 20 entrepreneurship podcasts, but he's also really created this amazing site called podmatch.com. He ends up, let me just say, when people say, how do you get guests? They don't just come to me, people. They don't just wind up.
That would be nice, wouldn't
Yeah, they
it?
just filter into my email box, and my virtual team just books them. I'd love to give praise to my virtual team all the time, and I do, but Alex is the mastermind. So
Thank
when
you.
I saw that I got to interview him, I was like, oh my God, I get to meet you, and thank you. So the interview's over.
Oh,
We're
that's it.
done.
That's it.
That's it. I just wanted to thank you.
Well, Sarah, it was nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah. No, but this is brilliant of you. And
Thank you.
look, I know there's other sort of platforms like this out there.
Mhm.
And so I'll give praise to, yes, it is a brilliant idea, but the concept of all all these podcast people who are doing it, we all need guests. And that was like my big fear when I started doing interviews and podcasts. I'm like, how do you get guests? And I definitely went to my own pool of and my clients, and I'm like, you have to come
Right.
on, you
Yeah.
have to talk to me. And of course, all those people were like, I don't want to do that. I was just as nervous, but the this is really the brilliance idea, because people need guests.
Yeah.
So I
Absolutely.
how did you come up with it, and how did you put it all together? I think that has to be my first question.
Yeah. So it's an interesting story. Yeah, there are some other companies that have like directories and things like that. But as far as
Mhm.
matching actually happening, especially when we started this, I couldn't find any of these companies. They all kind of popped up overnight, it seems like. But
Yeah.
when we started this, it was actually based off of me really trying to serve podcasters. So you referenced that I have a podcast myself. So for the last few years, I've been traveling to all the conferences. Well, now it's virtually, but I used to travel to these conferences in person.
We will travel again,
We
Alex,
will.
I swear.
I know. I'm ready for it. A virtual stage is not quite the same. I don't mind it, but it's not quite the same. But anyway, so I was at a conference in Orlando, Florida, and it was called Podfest. And while I was there, I had told my wife that, you know what, while I'm here, I'm going to do something to help podcasters. I want to find a way to serve them
Mhm.
more than I have been in the past. Because when I started my show, same thing. I had to rely on everybody in podcasting to be like, what mic do I get? What, like, how do I
Right.
record? Like, there was
Oh,
just
it's so funny that you say that, because everybody does. They say, I don't know what mic.
right.
Is like the first question. It's like, and everybody goes, yeah, you get that Yeti thing, go get
Yep. Right.
the.
Which is, I used the Yeti mic for years. It's a really great mic. And I had no problems with it at all. And actually, the only problem I had with it is if you go back, and this is a little fun fact for everybody, if you go listen to my podcast, Creating a Brand, every single episode, you will hear me hit the mic with my hand because I talk with my hands a lot. And
Mhm.
so I needed something that could go on an arm,
Right.
but now I'm free. So my last
Right.
10 episodes have not had me hitting the mic. So, which I'm very thankful for. But anyway, so when I got started, yeah, I had all those general questions like how do I record? How do I edit? Where do I publish? How do I get on Apple? Right? Like all these questions people have. And so many podcasters were just willing to help out. And I came
Yeah.
from a very competitive industry. Before that, I did many years in the aerospace industry, which was
Mhm.
like even among my own company, it's like, hey, the people sitting next to you, they're your friends, but they're also your competitors. And if they're outside this company, don't ever look at them, don't talk to them. If they even smell what you're doing, they're going to come after you, right? Type of thing. And so I was kind of bred through this like very competitive mindset. When I got into podcasting, realized everybody's just like, hey, oh yeah, I had this great guest. Let me introduce you to them. Or, oh yeah, here, let me mention you on my social media so you can get some listeners. I was like, man, what a nice group of people.
It is.
It
Yep.
really is, isn't it? It's crazy. And
I love that. It and it's funny, because when I started, that was exactly how helpful Podmatch is. It, you know, people will say, when you look at an app, a business tool, you start getting hit up with, oh, here's another business tool, here's another
Right.
business. And you're like, well, which one do I use? But this was really different. This was, far more like lack of a better word, the fraternity sorority of, you know, I want to come on and I kept saying, oh my God, these people, I would get done with, 4 or 5 podcasts in a day because I would do
Oh,
a
wow.
bunch.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, but I would have dinner with my husband and say to him, I need to do something with my life. The people were
That's how I feel too. I'm glad I'm not
right.
alone.
I'm thinking, I was so blessed to meet these people around the world, not just our country, around the world, doing such amazing things. I mean, and to the point where my husband started coming home and saying, "Well, who'd you meet today?"
Yeah.
And
Oh, I love
so
that.
I really do thank you for this outlet of bringing people together, because I really do think that that's what you've created.
Yeah, thank you.
um, I
Yeah.
really do.
To go back to when I actually like really started. So like podcasters being so kind to me, and like you're saying, some of these guests that come on, they're just incredible. When I was at that conference, I actually just asked podcasters what they were struggling with. And after I
Mhm.
got off stage, I just, no matter if you're a good or bad speaker, people line up to talk to you. That's just the way it goes, thankfully. And so I had about 100 people that I was able to talk to in that moment. And I just kept on asking, hey, what are you struggling with in podcasting? And I consistently heard I can find a guest, but not the right one necessarily. Like my mom will come on again, but like not, it's not who I'm looking for, right? And that's where I really got the idea for it. Just like, you know what, there needs to be a way that we can match people together. So we just built something that's kind of similar to an online dating app. It was interesting because right when I got home from that trip, I was like, okay, I know I need to build something like this for people. What does it need to look like? And I had a friend who was over at my house, and he was on Hinge, which is just one of the dating apps, right?
Sure.
And he's scrolling through. I'm like, can I see that? I'm like, can I use that? And he starts like letting me do it. And he's like, dude, what's wrong? Because I've been married for longer than these
Right.
apps have been in existence. I'm like, I'm just curious as to how this works. Explain it all to me. And
Right.
anyway, the rest was history from there. That's where we really came up with the idea. And we've really just consistently since day one done our best to improve that algorithm and make sure it's getting better and better at finding the right guests for people. And it's done really well. And I'm very thankful for it.
When did you start it? I actually, I'm looking at how long has it been going?
So the idea when like I had the idea, wrote it on whiteboards was March 10th, 2020. And we launched into early beta June 15th, 2020.
Wow. So it's not even that
Yeah, when
old.
recording, yeah, not even a year yet. It's 1 month and 2 days away from a
Wow.
year.
So
So
Alex, I really jumped on right at the beginning.
thank you. Yeah,
Oh my
you're one of the
God. I'm
early
like,
adopters. Thank
I
you.
didn't, I mean, honestly, I didn't even realize that. Oh, I'm excited to know that because, um, it, I mean, I have to say that there were a lot of people who jumped on then right at the beginning, because I sat down with a business coach, and he, I always say, like, nobody can get me to do anything but him, and he was like, why don't you have a podcast? I'm like, well, who cares what I have to say? And it took me a while to wrap my head around it, because I'm really not that publicist who thinks I want to hear from my clients. I want to hear from other people.
That's why you have
And
a lot of clients, by the way. So
well,
that's some advice for people listening right now.
thank you. Thank you. But it took me a while to realize, like, what do I want to do? And when, and I think that it's important when you do a podcast, you think, what is my story? What do I want to talk about? What's my message? Who's my target? And and then I got great advice also, by the way, from my 3 adult children, who said, Mom, do you even listen to podcasts?
Do you? It's a good question.
Well, and here's the truth. At the time, I was listening to maybe a couple, but in my busy day, I wasn't. So I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, that was some pretty good advice.
Yeah.
I'm a,
No,
I'm
that's
a
really good
little
advice.
I'm a little older than you. So here's the thing about podcasts. I think that, we're at when you think about it, my kids were all listening. They're, being 28, 26, that's their world. They're walking in their busy cities, they're on a bus, they're on a subway. They're not listening to music anymore. They're
Right.
listening to podcasts, and they're very niche, you know, and which is also what's amazing about Podmatch is, you can have a business coach, you can have relationship. You can have the mom blogger, the mom podcasters
Yeah.
and things. So
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. And like you're talking about, like the actually not to get too deep into analytics and stats, although I'm like a junkie with all that stuff. I love it. But last
mhm,
year, 2020, there was reports by Spotify, Apple, and a few other companies that stream music, and they showed that listenership to music had flatlined. Like there wasn't
right.
more people listening to music. So, but there's more people hitting an age where they could have their own device now. So people, their own
Mhm,
devices was increasing, but podcasting seems to have filled the gap of, okay, listenership of music is not growing, but podcasting is on
mhm.
par with the amount of people in the community, the population that is has access to this type of stuff. So it's very interesting to see that you're right. Like people are listening to podcasts and they're finding the ones that they want. It's not
Right.
just sure there's the Joe Rogans of the world, and everyone apparently listens to Joe Rogan. I can't get into a 3 hour episode personally, but
No.
a lot of people are into that. But in general, the rest of people, every time I meet someone and ask them what they're listening to, everyone has a podcast they listen to that I have never heard of, which is always very interesting to me. I love that.
Yeah. Well, and I do too. And so I have that question, and that is because I talk about this a lot. There's a lot of traffic out there
Yes.
in the social media world. And so I do think there's a lot of traffic out there in the podcast world, but it's the difference I feel is that it just means that you just have to find what you like. Because I also now find myself trying to find places to put clients. I just had this conversation yesterday with one of my clients who's a national e-commerce, and the best, what are the best business entrepreneur podcasts? But that's one area she could be in. She's fashion. That's another area. I mean, so
Hmm.
there's so many places that she could, you know, fall into. That would build her brand even more. And I think if you do that, you sort of never run out of places to put, or to be a guest.
Yeah.
Um,
It's actually interesting that you bring that up because Apple's a little bit behind these days when it comes to podcasts. It's actually Spotify who's kind of leading the way
mhm,
now. And Spotify's search has gotten very intelligent when it comes to searching for podcast episodes. So in the future, right now, this isn't the case. Still, people like subscribe to, I think it's an average of 6 podcasts that people subscribe to, or 7 or
mhm,
something like that. And that's kind of where they stick. But a lot of people are now able to go to a Spotify and be like, I want to listen to a fashion entrepreneur, and they
right.
can type that in and they can actually now find those people that are talking about those topics. They don't necessarily need to just stay with the one podcast they're interested in. So I think in the future, we're going to have a lot more people searching as you would search on Google, right? Like in Google, you
Right.
don't just go to the one website that you're like, hopefully I have the answer I'm looking for. You just go to Google and type it in. I believe that Spotify and Apple at some point will become that for podcasts as well, where you type in exactly what you want to hear and it'll find you episodes that are on that topic. That's at least the future that I'm imagining and seeing. And I do hope it goes there because, like you're saying, you have a client right there that would be, I think, very interesting to hear. I don't know anything about fashion. I mean, wearing a gray T-shirt, like so. I'd be curious to hear someone who's an entrepreneur but also has that mind that's very creative, obviously. So
Mm.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to a future where you can really find those things more easily, and it's getting closer and closer.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Spotify in particular. As I just finished the Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen,
Oh, okay.
and loved it. And I love Spotify. Actually, it was my first entree really using Spotify, and then sent so many people over there to listen to that particular podcast. All the Bruce fans out there.
Right.
So how does this work for you as a full-time job? I mean, what are you looking for? I mean, as people listen, what do you need from people?
Thank you, Sarah. That's such a rare question. I don't get asked that very much. Podmatch is really like we are focused on giving to the community of podcasters. So an interesting stat about podcasting, because a lot of people always talk about how there's so many now and it's starting to become saturated, which actually isn't true at all. Right now, when we're recording this, there's just over 2.1 million podcasts in total, which does sound like a lot, but very few of them are active. And in fact, it's hardly any at all that are still actively producing episodes. So when I did some deep research in this and spoke last week at a conference about this, I found that only 10% of people make it to their first year in podcasting. So to make it through your first 12 months, you have a 90% chance of failing, which is really sad. So Podmatch is just one way we can help people actually do that, because one of the biggest complaints that people have, or reasons they stop, is like, I couldn't find guests. Like, it just turned into too much. And I was there when I first got started. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna keep this going long term, because I should be recording and talking about my episodes, but instead I'm spending hours on end trying to find people. Thankfully, I don't do that anymore. But so we kind of helped overcome that. So Podmatch has a free base because that's really important to us. We want to make sure that people, if they want to just have the bottom tier of it, which is free, it's good for most people getting started and things like
Mhm.
that. And then we have the paid tier, which I believe that you're actually like one of our first paying members, I believe. And you get a, you get
My husband will appreciate that. It's like,
right.
oh no, don't do the free one. Go right in.
I love it. Actually, I really appreciate it. It's helped us get to where we're going, and you get a lot more opportunity when you do it that
do.
way.
I mean,
So,
I will say that you get, just for anyone listening about this, and it's no joke. I love a free trial. I do appreciate a free trial, but I will tell you, a free trial is kind of a joke in my world. It like stops you. Like, it's basically like, it's like the email you already got. And the truth of the matter is, and with you, you get an email. How often do I get that email from?
I don't know.
I mean, I get like this list of guests to go through, and
Yeah,
I mean, I see, it's just, I mean, I just get a lot of information.
right. Yeah, and yeah, it's important. Those are completely those are like VA run. So I don't know how
Mhm.
often that you're
Yeah.
hearing, but you're a good host and people really like you, so you probably hear a lot. So but yeah, so that was important to us. Like, and then yeah, so like for me making this a full time career, the paid side of it helps a lot, obviously. And then we also have the agency model, which we've just actually recently launched, and that's done really well. So that's for somebody like that is a publicist or PR firm or anything like that that manages multiple clients. They have one
Oh,
dashboard where they can control up to 300 clients of their own and work their matches and messages and things like that. And that's really like, if there's a spot where we make a lot of money, it's that spot. And it makes sense because all those people are charging their client for that service as well. And I had one person, they decided to start a company because they saw we had that, which I thought was very ambitious of them. They decided they would go out and find clients that they can get on podcast, and they were charging them for it. So, and they were telling me, they're like, hey, I pay like $5.99 per person on your platform for Podmatch Agency, and they're like, I'm charging them $100 a month. I was like, well, good for you. I'm like, then you're making a good business. Like, so good job. But those are really our different things. We have the basic plan, the professional plan, and the agency, and that's what we do at Podmatch, and that's how we plan on keeping it. And it's worked really well for us. We just broke 10,000 people 2 days ago on the platform, so I'm so excited and
amazing.
thankful for that.
Amazing. I will ask this question, and because I get asked all the time, and I know you know it, it's coming. And I had no intention, and I still have no intention, different than other people. I do not want to make or monetize my podcast. Not even in my wheelhouse, not interested. That is not the case for, I don't know what percentage, but
All of them.
that's not my goal. Never was. My goal was always to meet fascinating people and tell their story, or I wasn't going to do it. So, for everyone out there who's listening, who their goal is obviously to monetize and become rich from their podcast, what's the best advice when they come to me and say, I want to do a podcast and I want to retire now because I have a podcast?
Yeah, it's uh, Sarah. This is like
But,
this is the most common question. This is the one I
really?
hear. Oh yes, absolutely. Especially go to a podcasting conference. I'm like, what's your goal with your podcast? Because I like to ask that question.
Mhm.
And 90 some odd percent, I don't know the exact percentage, but
Right.
almost every time it's, oh, I want to quit my job, or I want to make enough money that I can have some freedom through my podcast. And the stats in podcasting just show that that is not going to happen. And I don't mean to be negative or mean or anything like that, but I can give example after example. I'll just give one. If you get really good at, first off, people assume general because then they'll have all the listeners. The more general you are, the less people you serve, the less people will ever listen. So you want it to be more focused. You want it to somehow help you or them go further, right? Like, it's the idea. It's got to have something like that. And so people that have a really focused show, sometimes they have a niche that they focus on that may only have 5,000 people total that will ever listen to it. Like, that
Mhm.
might be the total listeners because that's the only people that are interested in that. Seth Godin gave a great example. He said people that like to talk about building birdhouses. there might only be 5,000 people like that in the world or something like that, right?
Right.
So if you had all 5,000, best case scenario, which you're never going to get all 5,000, let's just imagine best case scenario of all 5,000, you still can't make money off advertising on that. A sponsor won't pay you a lot of money because that's not enough listenership. So
Hmm.
even if you mastered that area, you still can't. But you'd be better off if you were in that same niche, building a kit that shows people how to, I don't know, paint them in a way that doesn't fade over time, or in a way that's healthier for the birds, or that makes it easier to set up in your yard. Something like that, right? If you actually had a product or service alongside it, that's how you can monetize really well. But the assumption with monetizing a podcast is I'm going to get like some advertisements or a sponsor. And if you look at how many people have enough listeners to actually make even $50,000 a year on that, it's less than 0.05% of people actually do that. And I'll be honest, podcasting is a lot of work to get to that point. So much work.
Right.
So you have to really think about all these things. But if you have a product or service, that's the way you can really monetize it much faster.
I can't wait to post this from my business page then to my personal page. I might carry around this on a drive and stick it into people's computers when I meet with them, because I am so thankful to have an expert say that, because I think people need to understand and really realize that all these people doing podcasts are not getting rich.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, even the big names that do the advertising, most of them will make more money doing something else. So they have
Mhm.
their product or service. They might have an advertisement as well. And don't get me wrong, some of these people have millions of downloads. They do really well with having an advertisement in there because that's a lot of people listening. But if you're the average podcaster, I believe the average podcast gets, I think it's 120 downloads a week is like an established podcast.
Mhm.
That's going to maybe get you $20 a week or something like that. You can't live off of that yet. And
No.
again, I don't mean to be negative at all by saying this area. I'm just trying to give people the realistic understanding of what happens with it. But again, if you do have a product or service and you get really good at talking about that, it works really well. And for my podcast, I have a good listener base that my show has done very well, which I'm thankful for. But I took away all advertisements. There's no more in it at all. I just talk about Podmatch, and that's helped my company grow, which brings me more revenue than having an ad in there would anyway. And I think it gives me, it sounds a little bit more legit, right? Like less
Mhm.
sold out if the first 5 minutes are advertisements in my mind. And some people don't agree with that, but for me, I'm like, I don't want the first 5 minutes to be ads. I'd rather just get straight into the meat and help people, and hopefully push them to what I'm doing.
I appreciate that. I have to say that the one downside, and I can't tell you how much I love this Barack and Bruce. It was just so intriguing, and people get tired of me hearing me talk about it because
I know you're a
one,
big
I'm a
Bruce fan. I don't know about Obama, but you're a
one, I'm a
big Bruce
Bruce
fan.
fan. I get it, but it was just an intriguing historical kind of conversation. But they had this advertiser that was a men's shaving kit, and you got so into this conversation, and then this blasting music of the shaving kit, and I'm like, and I would be listening and walking, and then I'm like, brought to you by, and I'm like, and I felt like it was like 1-800, and it
Right.
just so detracted.
And why would you
uh,
want that? It's not even pointed to you, right? I mean, so
no. And it was very, no, it was one advertiser for men. So, I got to believe that Bruce and Barack have a lot of female
yeah, I'm about to say that
listeners.
they maybe should have thought that through a little bit and at least had one that could, because they just cut off probably 50% of their listeners,
Right.
right?
I
Like they
mean,
should have had, anyway, that I'm
no,
not the guy who
and
did the advertising. So
right. And I believe me, I don't want to get kicked out of the Bruce fan club there, but just from the standpoint of, advertising, the bottom line is, one, they weren't making their money on that, but two, it just, I think that, in these things, it's about branding. And so, yeah, great placement for that company. But I also don't think people run out and go, oh, I gotta have that shaver, because
right.
I just don't think. Um, tell me a little bit more about you before I let you go, because I know you are busy. Tell me about your specific podcast. And
Yeah. So I started my podcast because I just didn't hear the show that I was looking for. And
Mhm.
back then, granted, the tools were it was like we were talking about earlier, it's harder to search back then. This was a few years ago even, but you just go back 1 year and the tools were
Mhm.
completely different. Like Spotify was just kind of coming on the radar and things like that. So there wasn't ways for me to maybe find what I was looking for, but I did do my due diligence to try to find it. Now I found other shows, but I really wanted something, because it's the way I like to learn. I like really precise information
Mhm.
versus like I love listening to a conversation, but when I want to learn something new, I want just tell me what I need to know and let me
Right.
leave, right? Like, and so my podcast has always been more focused on that. So there's not a lot of back and forth conversation. I don't get into the stories with my guests. It's more so, hey, there are early stage entrepreneurs listening to this podcast. So they're just getting started with a side hustle or startup. They still have a full time job, more than likely. How can we give them a practical step to get closer to making this dream, this side hustle, something full time? So the idea is I just bring on somebody, we talk about one specific topic on how somebody can get closer to doing that. And we try to keep the episodes fairly short. Some people really like to talk, myself included, but they're usually about 30 minutes is about about what we do per episode. And I always tell people you're gonna have a you have to be taking notes because it's going to be really action packed, really fast. And some people love it, and other people have told me like this podcast is not for me. It's too much information, but that's really what I was looking for, and that's why I decided to create it. And it's definitely served a niche of people that I was really looking to serve. So for me, it's something I'll probably do this forever. I couldn't imagine ever not doing my podcast.
I love that. But I love what you're saying is that, and that's what people need to do is that they need to do the podcast that's true to them, authentic, and how they want to do it. And I always say the same, like for me, I am who I am. So it was interesting when I first did a podcast. I didn't turn the video screen on at first,
Me neither.
and and I use my hands too. And I remember calling my daughter, who's an actress, and I'm like, God, that was just terrible. I mean, I started out as a producer. I know how to ask a question. And I'm like, God, that was horrible. And she's like, well, just tell me what you did. And I'm like, okay, well, I asked questions and, and had, my logo or whatever was up. And she's like, well, did you have a mirror in front of you? Did you have the video screen on? And I was like, no. She's like, well, it's not fun to look at yourself. I get that. But you have to have some interaction with people. That's how people are. And so then I started, with my podcasts as well, having the video screen on, which is sort of how it parlayed into the live. But the truth is, what I love now is I have my podcast content can be repurposed for all kinds of different things. And
Right.
yeah, so, and I have all these great guests, but you learn a lot
Oh yeah.
from your first ones.
Oh yeah. I always
Oh,
tell people don't go back and listen to my original episodes. So
I don't
first
listen to
14, skip those if you don't mind. So
right. That too. And then the other thing is, I remember going, oh my God, this is so long. Like going, okay, like how do I cut this? Like he's going on and on. He's going on and on. So with that said, you can come back anytime and
thank you.
keep me up to date because we both have to go do our day jobs, as they
Right.
say.
Yep.
But I really am so happy to have met you and have to come down to Florida soon.
Yeah. Well, Florida's what we called it the Wild West, remember? So
That's
that's what
right.
anything goes here. So
Well, it's okay. Michigan is opening up again.
okay, good, good.
We're still mask on, I hope.
Yeah,
We'll
probably.
see. Anyway, Alex, thank you so much. Everyone, please, podmatch.com. I will say it. The free component is lovely, but if you really, really want to dive in
Thank
and
you.
do this, spend a little bit of money because you're really going to get the full benefit of the tools. It's not that much. It really isn't. It's really going to help you out. So, Alex, have a great day. Come back really anytime. Grab
Yeah.
my link, come back, tell me what's new and different on podmatch.com. I thank you for really having amazing guests. People who are in your
Yeah.
wealth of bag of tricks, as they say.
Right. Well, Sari, I really appreciate you having me. You're a phenomenal communicator. You have a really great podcast and live show. So it was an honor to be here today. So thank you so much for having me.
All right. Well, have a great day. Enjoy.
Thank you. You
All
too.
right. Bye-bye.